Hi, this is Sensei James Leonelli from Sensei's Weekly Mindset, and I'm here to talk to you about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball, soccer, and esports. Don't forget my personal favorite, MMA. We've got it all on betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, we can help you find those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. And don't forget BetOnline for NHL, boxing, golf, and like I said, my personal favorite, the sport of MMA. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Life isn't always easy, and you don't have to face it alone. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you have access to a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of needs. To get started, you simply answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's most convenient for you. The best part is, if your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at a more affordable price, all from the comfort at home. To start your journey and to get 10% off of your first month, go to betterhelp.com/sensei. That's betterhelp.com/sensei. BetterHelp, you deserve to be happy. Hi guys, Sensei James Leonelli here to talk to you about another one of our sponsors, LMNT. An electrolyte drink mix. Each one of these little packets gives you exactly what you need to keep you as hydrated as all us athletes like to be. If you're like me, you work out a lot, and when you work out a lot, you also sweat a lot. Now, when we sweat, we don't lose just water, of course. We also sweat out salt. We sweat out electrolytes. So each one of these packets contains 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium, giving you everything that you need in order to maintain optimal hydration and nothing that you don't. So to go online, place an order for your sample pack, and to get yourself a bonus free sample pack, you're going to go to this website right here, elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. You're going to see this down in the video below, but I'll say it one more time for you. elementallabs.refr.cc/James Leonelli. Again, it's a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing that you don't. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Sensei's Weekly Mindset. I'm Sensei James Leonelli, owner and head instructor of Tiger Schulman's here in Smithtown. Once again, I am back in my home recording space where I'm here to give you guys this week's food for thought. As per usual, I'm wearing some more awesome Tiger apparel, a little more from the Everyday We Train line. This from some of the original 4 that they dropped, but now we've got a whole bunch of new stuff that you should check out on tigear.com. Again, it's the Everyday We Train collection. Right, there's different colors of things, there's new patterns, there's shorts, there's slides, there's kids, there's women's, you name it, it's there, right? So plenty of stuff for you guys to check out. So as we are rolling today, I was reintroduced, we'll say, right? I was reminded of, probably a better way, of one of my favorite quotes, just something I really, really liked. From a long time ago, and it correlates with a lot of other quotes that I like, and it also correlates just in overall my messaging for like how we are improving ourselves. So with that in mind, the quote by a gentleman named Alexis Carrel, and Alexis Carrel was a a Nobel Prize winner in physiology or medicine in 1912. Right? He pioneered a whole bunch of like heart surgery techniques. He was a French surgeon and biologist. He passed away in the midst of World War II in 1944. He was 71 years old. And a really, really, really quotable guy. It's funny, when I wanted to make sure that I had the quote exactly correctly, I was looking it up, and I have in front of me a page full of quotes. So a really, really quotable guy with some really, really awesome thoughts, right? So the quote that I liked, that I really wanted to touch on today, was that man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both the marble and the sculptor. So once again, man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both the marble and the sculptor. And man, what a beautiful analogy and what a beautiful way of thinking when it comes to self-improvement. Because there's this infamous image that floats around social media, and it's a person where their top half is in shape and their bottom half is obese, but they're chiseling away at it with a hammer and chisel. But I love this thought process. I love this quote because it's so true for so many of the reinventions that we make in our life. But there's so many great quotes of Alexis Carrel's. Alexis is Alexis, and Carrel is Carrel. I really suggest you look into some of his quotes because there's some really, just on this one page that I have here, hard conditions of life are indispensable to bringing out the best in human personality. Love that. I love that. It's right along that same vein about how important it is to do difficult things. Right? And again, this is a little more reflective of his time, but another great quote: "Comforts and syphilis are the greatest enemies of mankind." I love it, right? Obviously, syphilis is a huge problem of the times, but ranking comforts right up against it. All great men are gifted with intuition. They know without reasoning or analysis what they need to know. And there's so many other great quotes that I could read you here, but I really want to get back to focusing on the one I opened this thought process with, that man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both the marble and the sculptor. So one of the things that I thought of immediately when I thought of this quote is the way that a person's life changes when they opt to make a career change, right? And you think about this in every sense that it can possibly work, right? Like I look at my father, for example. My father was an accountant for years, right? That's how he spent the majority of his working life, as an accountant. He was a CPA, got a CPA certification when I was very young, and he worked that whole time until only a couple of years ago when he stepped out of that world. So well over 30 years of being a CPA. But made his way into the world of teaching. And in doing so, he was remaking himself. He was reinventing who he is, right? Now, that's not to say he's a completely different person because he's a teacher, but he was reinventing who he was in his work life, which is a drastic change, a very drastic change, right? Like I know plenty of people who had a really nice, steady job and everything was good in their job, right? They were comfortable. They were making enough money. They knew that their job was stable. They knew they had a future there if they wanted it. But it wasn't their passion. It wasn't the thing they really wanted to do. It wasn't the thing that made them pull their head off the pillow every morning, right? Like Dana White has famously said, he goes, create a life that you can't wait to wake up to, where you hate to sleep because it's stopping you from living your life. And the people I'm talking about are not living that life. They're living a life of quiet desperation, where deep down they have this other dream, this other image of themselves, of who they want to be, of this version of themselves that they see. And they don't chase it. They let that dream stay a dream. Right? And every night they go to bed, and as they go to bed, they dream of being that person, but they never take action to make the change. to reinvent ourselves as that person that we dream of being, that career path that we dream of, right? That passion that we're chasing. There's going to be some suffering there. There's going to be some difficulty in reinventing ourselves in that way, right? Like, obviously, my father's in a slightly different situation because he was retiring, quote unquote, by moving himself down to being a teacher in a college where he went from working 5 days a week, 8+ hours a day, to working 3 or 4 days a week and at most six hours a day. Right? So obviously this is like a step toward retirement for him, and he's obviously taking a pay cut and everything because of it. But there's many people that I know who have reinvented themselves career-wise because it's where they wanted to go, because they were taking a chance, they were betting on themselves, which we know is the only bet I'm ever really willing to take. And by making that bet, by taking that chance, they put themselves in an uncomfortable situation. Maybe there's some debt that they have to strap on. Maybe they take a pay cut. Maybe the stability of their job just isn't there like it was previously. And they've got to suffer a little bit in order to reinvent themselves. Right? Now, that's the thing. They are the person holding that hammer and chisel. They are the sculptor. But at the end of the day, it's them that they're carving. It's them that they're sculpting. Right? They are the art project that they are working on. So they are both the marble that they're trying to work on, and they're the one that's steering the ship. They're the one that's chiseling away at that marble to create the life that they dream of. And there's so many other leaps of faith that people take in their lives, the chances that they take that are going to be uncomfortable. I mean, think about just this at the simplest sense, right? If you were someone who was going to start practicing dieting, you were going to refine and restrict your nutrition, there's some suffering there. There's some big suffering there, right? The ability to say no to yourself and, oh man, everybody else is having a piece of cake at this party and I know that doesn't align with my goals, so I'm not going to do it. That is some suffering. And, not just the psychological suffering, but let's be honest, we are social creatures. And it is very possible that one of your friends that's at this party with you while you're refusing this piece of cake might start questioning you. And they're like, oh, but really? And sometimes that's all it takes to rock our faith. But we know by suffering through that possible ridicule, by suffering through that moment of not giving in to the temptation, we're reinventing ourselves just a little bit. We're carving ourselves out of the marble just a little bit more to the person that we visualize being. And that's super important, right? Because no great journey in life, no great transition, no great victory ever comes without a little bit of suffering. Simplest example I can think of. When a person is strength training, right? Use push-ups as an example. Right? There's a certain number of push-ups that you can do, and that's fairly unique person to person. When I say can do, I mean from performing at good technique until the point of failure. So there is a number of push-ups that you can do. And for every person, it's probably different. Right? There's going to be some people whose numbers are the same, but it's going to be different as you move from person to person to person, of course. So with that in mind, right, that number of push-ups that you can do is unique to you. But how do you know you've done enough? You memorize the number you can do? No. Because that number is not going to be the same every day, right? If you had a terrible night's sleep the night before, that number is going to be lower. If you recovered unbelievably, you're super well hydrated, you're well rested, right? You had great nutrition pushing you, that number will be a little higher. So how do you know that you did enough? How do you know that you're getting closer to the goals that you have for yourself with the number of push-ups that you've done? Simple. You suffer a little bit. You make it uncomfortable. You make it that much harder on yourself. You push yourself until it is uncomfortable, until your chest, your delts, your triceps are burning and they do not want to cooperate anymore. And you push a little bit extra beyond that discomfort. You suffer that little bit because you know that the person that you want to become, the person that you want to see in the mirror, they do that number of push-ups. They don't do just enough. they do that other number. That's beautiful. That's great. That, my friend, is where success lies. That's where growth lies. Through the discomfort, right? Through chiseling away at yourself little by little by little, right? This is the mindset of a martial artist, right? That we are willing to go through the fire, so to speak. We are willing to do the difficult thing. We embrace the suffering. We seek it out, right? Because we know who we will be on the other side of that suffering, right? Just like you need heat to take iron and make it steel and forge it into something greater, you need to suffer a little bit to get to whom you want to be. Now, we might look at suffering in different degrees, right? We might look at someone who's absolutely starving to death as suffering, and that's true. But enduring discomfort at its very core is what suffering is all about, right? That little bit of going without, that little bit of denying yourself the pleasure, that speaks volumes to who you are. That speaks volumes to who you're becoming. That speaks volumes to how much closer you are to the person you want to be. And that's what we have to remember, right? We're all on a journey to get somewhere, right? Now, here's the thing. I'm only using positive examples right now, but there are negative examples just as well. You want to become obese, you got to suffer. Got to eat far too much for far too long. Be lethargic, right? Don't exercise and find that dopamine that your brain loves from exercise. Don't find those positive endorphins that you get from getting out there and training. Don't involve yourself in a wonderful community. And yeah, you'll suffer. And you'll change yourself too. Maybe it's not the change that you want, but you'll do it. Right? That little bit of hardship, that little bit of a fire under our rear end, that's the thing that makes us into the newest version of ourselves. Right? We know this, and we know it well, because think of how we treat our military. Right? We get someone who wants to be a soldier, wants to serve this country, is noble enough to protect and serve. That's wonderful. And we would think that that notion is the very first thing. And it is. It's the thing. It's the spark that gets the fire started, so to speak. But then, what do we do to those people? We subject them to unbelievable discomfort. Right? We make them endure all sorts of tough things because we know that by suffering, they'll be stronger for it. Just like my example earlier about the push-ups, where you do it until you're hurting and your body's failing. What's going to happen to that number of push-ups? It will grow over time. You will get stronger and stronger. When you look in the mirror, you'll love the shoulders and triceps and the chest that you see that much more, simply because when you're doing something as simple as the strength training part of what you're doing, you suffer a little bit. You go through that little bit extra, that little bit of discomfort. Right? It's such an important idea, because at the end of the day, the greatest project we work on in our lives is ourselves. Right? Like, I know a great many people who have this like life's work, and whether it's a piece of artwork or you know, a written work artistically, or if it's a business that they've built, or the legacy that they leave behind, you know, the family, the children, these type of things. I know plenty of people who have their lives work like that. Well, the way that you work on that thing, the way you get that thing better, is through the suffering, is through seeking out that difficulty, and forging yourselves in the fire. Right? That is where true success lives. That's where true strength lives. That's where the truest form of transformation lives, I should say. Again, it works in reverse. But that's not what I want to focus on. I want to focus on you choosing to take the harder path, choosing to do the difficult things. We've talked many a times about the value of choosing to do difficult things. But all that stuff that you're working on, that we talked about, the greatest project of all of them that you will work on is yourself. You will be better, stronger, faster for it, or you won't. Based on just how much you're willing to subject yourself to that little bit of suffering, that little bit of discomfort. It's very important. It's very important, right? Think about, again, let's take a more extreme example and a positive one. Think about an addict breaking an addiction. It is not a clean and pretty process, right? You think about someone who's trying to kick drugs one way or the other, right? Whatever drug we're talking about. It's not as though there's like, okay, I'm good. Doesn't happen that way. Not at all, right? Even if they're in the type of program where they're using the chemical assistance, where they're getting something, some kind of medication to try to wean them off the drug, well, they're still going to be hurting quite a bit. They still have to suffer through that process and come out a different person on the other side. A very worthwhile fight, but it is still a fight. It is still something they have to suffer through. Now we think to ourselves, why do we want any human being to suffer? Why do we want to suffer? Simple. To avoid complacency. Because no matter where we are in our life, we always dream of ourselves as doing something bigger and better. Right? We talked about Dana White in that quote he talked about before about the, if live the life that you can't wait to wake up to, right? Dana White is the gold standard of promoter for mixed martial arts, right? Every other show in the world is trying to be the next UFC, right? Maybe they have a slightly different vision, so, oh yeah, we're not going to be a carbon copy, but they all want to get to that level of success, right? Well, he didn't get there overnight, right? It wasn't like he was gifted this company, he just made it a little bit better. No. Yeah, his friends bought the company, but they bought it at a certain rate, and then they threw so much money and work into this. They were severely in the hole for a very long time. And it was only through suffering through all that Dana White was able to take this vision that he had and become the gold standard of martial arts that all other shows are measured against. Are they as good as the UFC? Right? UFC has become the Kleenex of mixed martial arts, where when you want a tissue, you don't say I want a tissue, you say I want a Kleenex. Right? They've become the thing that you just wrap your head around when it comes to thinking of MMA. But again, got there through suffering. Right? He's told the story many a times about how close they were to just throwing in the towel, simply because of how much they were suffering to get there. But by doing so, they've reached heights they could never imagine. And that's the beautiful thing. We never know who the version of us, right, that we see ourselves as, exactly what it's going to take to get there. But I can assure you that no matter where you're going along the way, no matter what it is that you are seeking, right, how you are seeking to make yourself better, how that in your mind version of yourself is better, how that goal that you have set for yourself is a better person or the mark of a better person, those won't all be the same. But I can assure you this. It will take some suffering to get there. It will take you creating the life of your dreams. And doing so by going out on a limb, by doing those things that are difficult, by doing those things that are scary. Right? Those scary moments, those difficult moments, they're suffering built right in. And you can never know exactly what is on the other side. But I can guarantee you this. You know what's on the side that you're on. If you're trying to go from A to B, and you're too scared to ever leave A, yeah, you might fail on the way to B, but you'll never know. You have no idea, because you never even ventured to try. One thing I can assure you is, if you're on A, you're trying to go to Z, even if you fail along the way, you'll wind up at B or C. And then you try from there. And maybe the next time you get to F, G, and this process continues. And none of it's fun, right? The falling short, the getting back up doing it, that's not fun. But the success you see at the end of that rainbow, that, my friends, that's where the real fun lives. And that's why we've got to be willing to suffer through that hardship. Because the surest way to change ourselves, the surest way to evolve into a better, stronger person is simply through that little bit of suffering. So that's all I have for you guys this week. As always, you can reach me via email, senseileonelli@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at sensei_Leonelli. On Facebook, I'm Sensei James Leonelli. You can find my school online, tsmasmithtown.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at tsmma_Smithtown. You can find us on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/TigerSchulmanSmithtown. Find the podcast on Instagram at Sensei's Weekly Mindset. Make sure that you guys check out Tiger Schulman's organization as a whole, tsk.com. We've just opened our 50th location, so by all means check that out. All right. You can find everywhere I'm on the internet at my linktree, linktr.ee/Sensei Leonelli. There you can find out everything about Flex Fights, about Tiger Schulman's, and about all of our great sponsors. Sponsorship opportunities still available. Reach out to me by any means that I gave you. All right, make sure that you guys leave a rate and review. It just helps. Subscribe, get your new episodes every Wednesday. But most important thing you can do for me, guys, make sure that you guys share the podcast. It is the single greatest compliment that you can give me. It's the only form of advertising I have, so I very much appreciate it when I see you guys doing it. So, until next time, my friends, invest in yourselves. I'll see you guys on the mat.